So thank you so much for showing up. And of course, I'll begin by asking you a question. If you voted in 2022, by show of hands, do you know that in 2022 we had more than 8 million voters who did not turn up to vote? And if you could turn up to vote on that particular day, that means it would have made a difference. Yes. Another question. If you are a registered voter, or if you registered recently, how many believe that your vote counts? Your vote counts. Okay. How many have observed any campaign promise that has come true? You've seen a campaign promise and it has come true. How many? So as many as for those who have not seen any campaign promise come true, say aye. Aye. Nay have it. Now that's how our people believe our electoral process are. And we are here today to discuss how your vote actually travels from the polling station all the way, either to Bomas or it disappears somewhere between or around your polling station. Because some of us believe, or some of you believe your vote doesn't count. Every 5 years, we wake up, we go to queue, we sweat in those queues, and then we argue online. At the end of the day, we say that Kurangu iliibiwa. See, that's how we say. Yeah. I've seen very wonderful presentations here. And there are so many people who expressed concerns in the body that manages elections. And so we are here to discuss that. And I would like to disagree with some groups that say maybe democracy is not our best bet. I would like to disagree with you, probably, somehow, but also substantively. I have a very short presentation. You shall be following on the screens so that we keep track of what we are discussing. Now, just to walk you up the memory lane. We had the Mlolongo system. I don't know whether you've heard of Mlolongo system. How many were there? I believe for those who doesn't, for those who believe in reincarnation, I believe I was there. And I was running for office, I don't know, but I was there. So in 1988, we had a system called Mlolongo system. In this system, people are queuing behind the preferred candidates. And we had a lot of intimidation, we had a lot of fear from the state, because people queued behind. If you were supporting the MC here, probably alikuwa na vie for president, yes, he could line up behind this agent. So you could see how intimidating was that. And you could see on that particular image on the screen, people lining up. During that particular time, we had one party state. So that means that we only had KANU in place. Then it came in 1991, after now repeal of the Section 2 of the Constitution, where now we reintroduced the multi-party system. Multi-party system is where now we have more than one party. This actually opened up the political space. But still, we had a lot of influence from the state. We had a lot of state-controlled manipulation and all that. So those elections that were happening in 1992, 1997, there was still aspect of fear, intimidation, the aspect of ethnic mobilization and all that. And then the turning point was in 2010 when we promulgated the Constitution of Kenya. I don't know, you know the president that presided over that. Who was that? Huh? Uhuru Kenyatta. Yes. President Mwai Kibaki. Could not have a umbrella and confused. Now, this constitution marked a very important turning point for us because it emphasizes on the right-based political participation. It also emphasizes on the inclusion of special groups. Special groups. Nani wanajua special interest groups? Munasikianga hiyo jina? Who are they? Marginalized groups? No. We have the youth, we have the women, we have persons with disabilities, then we have people from ethnic minorities. Those are the special interest groups as envisioned in the Constitution. And then now we had our first elections under the new Constitution that happened in 2013, 2017, and then recently 2022. Now these elections introduce now new aspects. Hapa sasa kukuwa na mlolongo. This kind of elections, it emphasized on technology, whereby we had technology in terms of voter registration, voter identification, and also transmission of results. In these very elections, we established a body that manages elections, that is IEBC. Though, even though we still had I before EBC, that is independent, right? People still have trust issues with the independent part of it. I don't know whether you believe that IEBC independent. As many as for that, say aye. You don't believe it's independent? Okay. So let's proceed. Now focus. This particular elections was this particular constitution is very critical for us. So, for us to believe in this, we have a constitutional background for this. And it's anchored under Article 1 of the Constitution, where it talks about sovereignty of the people. You've seen a clip going around saying that people, which means mandatory. Yes, but now for this, people may exercise their powers either directly or indirectly. So that means, that means that you have your powers that you have dedicated, part of your powers you have delegated to someone that you go every 5 years to elect, that you consider your savior. Sindio? There's a group that presented that says that we elect people whom we are going to forget for the next 5 years. So, that person whom you are going to forget for 5 years, you have delegated part of your powers. But your powers is always inherent. It is never taken away. Article 38 also, it guarantees your political participation. That means you have the right to participate as a candidate. You have all rights to participate as a voter in this particular process. And therefore we have also other articles that also guarantees your rights in this particular process. And I think there is also a group that emphasizes that elections is not an event. There's those people who know elections, wakati tunaenda kupiga kura date. Is it date 8? Is it 8, 9 or 10? Yeah? The second Tuesday, August of every 5 years. So, elections is not that particular day alone. When we talk about elections, it's a whole cycle, which means it begins from registration as a voter. There's that aspect of nomination during campaigns. There's voter tallying during elections day. There's petitions. So you've seen petitions. Petitions are part of the electoral processes. There's also reforms that are part of these particular processes. And therefore, these particular articles, they form part of your part of the electoral processes. So, as I mentioned, that every 5 years, the new constitution established a body that manages elections, which is called IEBC. Now, this particular body that is a referee that many of you don't believe in or always doubt. It is constitutionally established with a number of functions that you can see there. It does voter registration. I'm sure you've seen voter registration drives going around. Now we have two types of voter registration that IEBC usually conducts. One, we have the continuous voter registration that is currently happening, and it happens at the constituency office, that is constituency IEBC office. And then secondly, we have the enhanced voter registration drives. These are usually, they are usually close to elections, whereby now IEBC calls for people to go and register for those who have not registered. And it's usually, IEBC usually takes around their registration kits, to various places. Villages, you'll see IEBC coming around with kits, but at the moment they are doing the continuous voter registration. Now, this is the work of IEBC, and it was envisioned that this particular body should be independent in nature. That means it does not receive any instruction from either judiciary or executive or parliament. Now, when you look at that picture, I don't know whether you can see, it's basically a cycle that shows the electoral cycle events as they happen. When you look at the first quadrant, the white one, you'll see a number of activities that happens. That is around legal framework. This is where by now we set the legal environment, whether we need a referendum to change the constitution, whether we need to do amendment of any electoral management bills or acts of parliament. This is where now we conduct that particular process. And then we have planning and implementation. This is where now the parliament plans or puts budget responsible for election management and all that for IEBC. And then we have voter registration, drives. And then we have, during now the elections, we have elections. We have also verification of results. Now, this is during the elections day. We have voter we have election voter tallying, we have verification of results, and also declaration of winners. And then after the elections day, we have now post-election activities. Post-election is where now IEBC does, let me remove this. Post-election activities involves those activities that IEBC now does self-assessment, and then it submits a post-election report to the parliament. Now, that is the whole electoral cycle. It has almost around three cycles. Pre-election, then we have during election, and then we have post-election. Now, for you to participate in the elections, you have to be registered as a voter, right? You can't just wake up and go and vote. You have to register as a voter. Now, hapa ndo nauzana jirani yako uko kwa register. Umeregister as a voter. Bigo anaweza kuambia, anaweza kuwa anakuambia siasa mingi na haja register as a voter. Now, Article 88 of the Constitution, it clearly states or gives you, or it lays down foundation for ensuring that people are sufficiently registered as voters and participate in these processes. So after registration as a voter, yeah, this is now voter registration. I don't know how many knows the kind of electoral technology that we use. Nani wanajua tunatumianga technology gani kwa elections zetu? KIMS. What is KIMS? It is Kenya Integrated Electoral Management, right? And KIMS, it has, hello? Najoma discuss KIMS. KIMS has 4 aspects. And I know, munasikianga BVR most of the time. We have biometric voter registration. That is now, it has that, hiyo ndio mnenanga hapo unaweka hivi kidole. That one captures your fingerprints and all that. And then we have RTS, that is a results transmission system. Wakati wamehesabu kura pale kwa kituo, for those who have been there, it is usually scanned and then it is sent somewhere. We'll discuss that. It is scanned and it is sent somewhere. So that system is called results transmission system. And then we have, of course, candidate registration system that, of course, registers candidates. So that system is called KIMS. It's the election technology that we use as a country. So it is very important for us to register as voters because we've seen the cost of voter apathy, right? We've seen so many youths have not been able to either register as candidates because of a number of course, reasons. Vijana watakwambia hizo stations ziko mbali sana. And of course, for you to get there, you have to spend some 500, of which they don't have. That is one of the challenges that they have cited. So once we register as a voter, now there's that particular period that we call campaign period. Campaign period is not just any other period that we see. Campaign period is usually gazetted. It is announced and gazetted by IEBC, usually around 2 to 3 months before elections. So during this period, we see all political parties going around with candidates. Now, when you look at that particular background picture, you can see a number of political parties. How many of you are members of political parties? Ni wangapi waliamuka tu wakapata ni members of Roots Party na wako register? Ama uliamua wakapata you are a member of a political party and you didn't register? Okay, how many are in a political party, belong to a political party, whether Roots, Jubilee? Najua watu wengine wanaogopa. But political parties, hello? Now, political parties, they are very important institutions that were established by our constitution to realize our democracy. We live or we operate in a kind of political party democracy. And Article 91 and 92 of the Constitution lays foundation for these particular institutions. They were not meant to be people's businesses or enterprises. We know that most of the people wanajuanga political parties the enterprise ya watu. Wanajuanga probably wanajuanga UDA ni ya president, wanajuanga ODM ni ya baba. But those institutions, they are not supposed to be people's enterprises, but they are institutions that are supposed to realize our democracy. That's why they were envisioned in the political parties. But the challenge has always been during nominations, because during nominations is when our political parties nominate their candidates to participate in the elections. But this is where our democracy dies even before the elections date. Sindio? Situmona violence during nominations. We've seen loyalists being given tickets instead of people who have merited, right? We've seen people who belong to a political party, but because of the ticket, they decided to go independent, right? So these particular institutions, they are very important. Now, in 2017, we had a case by Okia Omtata. And in this case, there were some prayers that, of course, the petitioners were seeking. And the interpretation of the court was that those candidates who have been presented to IEBC after nomination, that particular list, it cannot be changed. Once a political party submits a list of candidates to IEBC, that list never changes because it's submitted around, I don't know, I'm not sure, but it's 60 days to elections. So that means, kama umekuwa promise na party leader unapewa nomination, and on the final list, yenye umekuwa submitted, you are not there, but they are still promising you. That's a lie, because it cannot change. So if there has to be benefit or fairness, then it has to be before that list is submitted to IEBC. Now, we have, during the campaign, we have an act that actually governs that particular period to ensure that there's ethics. And in that particular image, I don't know whether you can see, there's a chopper How much do you need to run for an MCA seat? Yeah? How much? Ni wangapi wanajua you need how much to run for an MCA seat? 1M. What about an MP? 5M. Now, there's a number of reports. There's a number of reports that have been done. And there's one that was done by Mzalendo Trust on the cost of elections, the cost of running for office. The amount that you need for you to run for an MCA position is between 5 to 7 million. The amount that you need to run for an MP is around 10 million. For senator, it's around 15 million. For governor, it's around 50 million. And so, where do you think these people get this amount of money? Huh? So, we have an act. Hello? Hello? We have an act of parliament that cleans up or ensures that the money that is involved in the elections is clean. It's called the Elections Campaign Financing Act, which was enacted in 2013. However, this act has never been operationalized. Now, we have this act, but it has never been operationalized. From 2013, in 2017, it was paused. It was paused. Yeah? The parliament found reasons to press that snooze button. And so it was not implemented. And I will give you the reasons why. That's why in 2022 we were told we are going to have so many wash guys in the parliament. Isn't that true? Don't we have wash guys in the parliament? We do have, yeah? Because there is an act, but it was never implemented. Now, reasons is that in 2017, IEBC, it paused, let me use that term, it paused the implementation of this particular act because there was no regulations. The act requires regulations for it to be implemented. So, because of that, it paused it. Now, there was a case to that where Okiom Tata and others went to court saying that IEBC doesn't have powers to pause that particular act. But the court said that it is within the purview of IEBC to pause it because implementing the act without regulations, it will cause chaos. It is like having a mouth without teeth. You can't chew. You can put your food, but you can't chew. Or you're having a vehicle, but without fuel. Now, these regulations, they were introduced to Parliament. IEBC developed the regulations, introduced them to Parliament, but Parliament wakaikanyagia. Wakasema, these regulations has been introduced close to elections. And the Parliament knew that if this is going to be operationalized, then they are not going to use their money during the elections. So wakaikanyagia. During 2022, same case happened. Now we don't know whether IEBC is going to reintroduce the same regulations before 2027. So we're not sure whether this particular act will be operationalized or will continue having politics as a playground for the rich. Now, when you look at that particular picture, it's about now the voting process. Now for those, I don't know, kulikuwa na mikono, there are those people who are first-time voters. Now that particular picture or image, it illustrates what happened during within the polling station. Once the voter enters the polling station, your information is verified in the computer. Unaweka hivi kidole hapo kwa BVR, computer inaleta details zako. Kama una kidole, Size IBC has introduced using your retina, I think, to still identify people. So your information is verified both in the computer and in the manual register. And then once you are verified that you are a voter in that particular region, hello, once you are verified, you are given or you are issued with 6 stamped ballot boxes. 6, that means you are given a ballot boxes for MCA, for an MP, women rep, senator, governor, and a president. Na ukiangalia hivi nyuma inakuanga stamped. And then you proceed. Unaenda kwa kona fulani hapo kana kuanga ni wewe tu na hiyo kura yako. Now that is where now a lot of introspection happen. A lot of people get to that particular corner that is isolated. Wanafikiria nilikula 50 bob ya mse fulani, acha tu nimpe kura. Anafikiria kuna msali nimpromise kazi, acha mpe kura. So that's where decisions happen. So you have to know that when you are marking that particular ballot, you are choosing someone who is gonna make decisions on your behalf for the next 5 years. We know how hard it is or impossible it is for us to impeach an MP. It is impossible at the moment. So that decision is very important. So once you mark it, then of course you proceed to cast your vote. Kama ni karatasi ya pink ya women rep, enda unatupa kwa box ya pink. And then of course ukimaliza unakuwa marked on your finger with an indelible ink, and then of course you leave. In that particular room, it's not only the IEBC officials. I'm sure you've seen other people around there. We have party agents in that room. Party agents ni wale agents wa chama. We have candidates agents. Kama when the MP governor, yeah, unakuanga na agent wako. They are allowed to be in that room. We have also election observers. I'm sure you've seen people written with jackets imeandikwa kwenye observer. They are there to ensure that they observe that particular process. We have media are there to document that. We have also other assisting persons, wale ambao wanasaidia pale IBC, basically IBC offices. If we have a person who is disabled only, they usually come with one person who is going to help them in terms of voting. And then after voting is closed, that is around, voting opens from 6 a.m. inafungwa 5. So once elections is over, now we proceed to voter tallying. Voter tallying is now wanafunganga, they usually close the polling station, wanafunga milango, then wale watu wako ndani wanafanya nini? They now proceed to tally the votes. Now after tallying, now the presiding officer. Now, for instance, we take an example of presidential elections. The presiding officer, after tallying imeisha, amesema in this particular polling station, Wajakoya, for example, amepata kura 200. They record that in form 34A. Simnasikianga form 34A? Yes. Once tallying is over, wana record that in form 34A. And then anascan na your system yao, your tablet, and then they send that to the returning officer. That is at the constituency level. That is sent at the constituency level for, of course, tallying. Now, once at the constituency level, the returning officer now collects zile results ambazo ziko kwa form 34As in that particular constituency. Then the totals is filled in form 34B. From 34B. And then he scans again. He scans again and sends now to the either Bomas ama KICC, now to the national level. Now, This, we were somewhere and we were asking one of the polling or presiding officers that once you scan that particular form, where do you think unatuma hizo results zinaendanga? Akasema hatujui. We don't know where it's sent. Wanajua vinaenda kwa server somewhere. Now, at the polling center, it is sent to the returning officer at the constituency level. Then constituency level, they scan and send it to the national level. Now, before sending, the returning officer usually declares the winner. So, if, for instance, during 2022, in a particular polling station, there is the returning officer has declared that either Rao or Ruto was winner in that particular polling, in that particular constituency. That was final. You get it? And this is actually taking us to a very important case. It is called Maina Kiai case. I'm sure you've heard about this a number of times. Now, this particular case, Maina Kiai and others, in 2016, they went to court. Of course, the issue was whether National Tallying Center can alter constituency results. Si kuna watu wasema kura yao inaibiwanga. Now, I want to see whether inaibiwanga ama hapana. Now, they went to court on that particular issue. And the court, that was the High Court, it ruled that the constituency returning officers' results are final for presidential elections. That means that the National Tallying Center cannot either correct, it cannot correct or alter the results for president. It only collects, it tallies. Wanafanya tu hesabu ya constituency 290 zote. And then Ewa Jabukati, that was then, now it is Ethekon, who is the chair, declares that so-and-so is the winner. So that means that for presidential elections, at the constituency level, that is where the finality of the elections comes in. Tunapata? Are we getting it? Hello? So, before the chair, the IPC chair declares the president, they usually wait for the physical from 34B. Iletwe, itoke kule Mandera, iletwe, ndo wafanye hesabu. But usually there's that, kuna ile wanakuanga wamescan. Those are only provisional, but they usually rely on the physical forms. Sawa sawa. So, wakisema result zimeibiwa ama kura imeibiwa, itakuwa imeibiwa either uko chini kwa polling center, hapo ndo maybe inaweza kuwa imeibiwa. And then, so this particular case, it laid a very important point in terms of tracking the presidential votes from the polling center to the national level. Now, when you look at that particular image, what do you see? What do you see? Yes. You see Joey, the Smaga Karua, and other people. You remember when they carried evidence in boxes? It was brought actually in a lorry. Yeah? So that presidential election dispute, it went to Supreme Court. Hello? Hello? Are you getting? Are you there? Now, reasons why they went to court was that there was illegalities and irregularities in the elections. Another reason was that Chebukati announced elections results of the winner without having received all the Form 34Bs and other reasons. In the wisdom of the court, it ruled that irregularities and illegalities were committed that particular election, and therefore it violated the constitution in terms of fairness, transparency, and verifiable elections. Now, this marked a very, it was a watershed, I mean, highlighting how our courts should be independent in the process, and also the importance of the courts in the process. I've talked about the ground for nullification. I'm sure you remember the issue of wild goose chase. You remember that? Hot air. Sindio? Now, I've talked about the role of citizens and observers in the process. Now, there's electoral offenses. I'm sure during the campaigns, you've seen people or politicians issuing out money. It's called voter inducement. Wanasema wanawapea facilitation. Yeah? Facilitation. I'm sure you've also seen politicians using state resources. That is kama ni county government wanatumia gari ya county, but they usually hide the number plates. Wanatuoneka civilian. You've seen people who have voted multiple times. You've heard about that claims. You've seen violence and intimidation, especially during party nomination, party primaries. Unapatanga kuna, if you are having your competitor, unaambia watu wako kujeni mapema before 12 tupige kura. So watu wako wanakuja before 12, ukihakikisha umepiga kura, and then mnaanzisha violence. Mnaanzisha violence, tear gas inatupwa, kunakuwa na chaos, and then police inafungwa. Tunasema nao tunahesabu kura kwa sababu kuna nini? Kuna violence. And then tunahesabu kura, alafu mimi nashinda. See, it's a strategy. It's a strategy that is usually, employed by so many politicians. And then we've seen also, talk about misuse of resources. Now, we have an act that actually controls that. And it's actually very, it's an offense. When you look at the Elections Offences Act of 2016, being all that I've mentioned is an offense. Hata kwenda kurarua ile poster ya your opponent, and then of course upatikane ili makosa, and then if of course you are convicted utapigwa fine, ama if you are a candidate you are disqualified. IBC over the period since it was established, it has been undergoing some kind of reforms. Reforms are basically talks that usually happens to strengthen the institution based on previous experiences. Now, in 2024, we had IBC Amendment Act of 2024. Now, this amendment is very important because IBC was looking at its history and experience in the whole process, the gaps that has been there, court decisions that has been there. So based on this, it tries to develop a new roadmap, try to basically strengthen its processes. That's why during the last elections, you've seen during the last selection of the IBC commissioners, you saw there was introduction of the 7-member panel. Sindio? We saw other things. Before, we didn't have, when we were engaging with the IBC, they told us that they don't have a specific dedicated communications directorate. So that means anyone within the commission was communicating. But at the moment, we have an established directorate of communications. We have other, of course, reform areas that IBC is looking at. Post-election review, that IBC must publish an evaluation report, of course, 18 months after the election to the parliament so that it can see how it's performing. IBC has also developed its strategic framework, of course, aligned with better policies. And also, it is in the process of upgrading the KIMS kits. That is to enhance voter registration, identification, and also the transmission of results. In 2017, you heard about Jose Camargo. Munakumbuka? You remember Jose Camargo?
Where was he hiding? Huh? He was somewhere in the toilet, we don't know where. So basically, these rooms are basically supposed to strengthen the institutional capacities of this. Now, when we talk about our democracy, someone say that democracy is the worst form of governance that we have. Hello? Hello? Is that a democracy? They say democracy is the worst form of governance that we have. But we must also remember that we are very young in democracy, but we are also progressive in nature. Even though we are facing a number of challenges here and there, yeah, but we are not yet there, but at least we are somewhere, right? If we could be having another form of, or at the level that Uganda is at the moment, ama Tanzania. It is on a light note anyway, but at least we are somewhere. As a country, hello? As a country, at least we are somewhere in terms of democracy. And we are always referenced as the best democratic country in East Africa by other countries. They respect us so much. We are somewhere. We are growing. But again, those who define it are those people that we usually choose and then disappear for the next 5 years. So I think it should be a reminder that we have some people, we choose people who should be making our democracy progressive in terms of retrogressive. Our call to action tonight, uza jirani yako kama ameregister kama mpiga kura. Yeah, umuulize kama ameregister. Yeah, it is very important for us to participate in the process because those people that we are electing, they are making important decisions that affect our lives, either directly or indirectly. Whether you have interest in politics or not, it will always have interest in you, and it will find you. I mean, if you don't vote, someone else will. And chances are, they don't think like you, they don't act like you, they don't behave like you do, or what you believe in. So that means it is your chance. And if you don't do that, then what will you do? I mean, what will you tell your kids? You can never imagine in 2028, you have a kid and there's nothing you can tell them that you participated in these elections. So for that, I want to thank you so much. And let's participate in a country. Let's participate in the process because it is very important for us to engage in the process. However much interested you are in the process, if you are not, the process is always interested in you. Thank you so much.